28 days since the Israel-Hamas war and almost a week since ground operations were launched into Gaza, fierce battles continued to rage in the Gaza Strip on Thursday. Troops were fighting off an overnight Hamas ambush. The Israeli military said that it was using artificial intelligence to identify thousands of new targets belonging to the Palestinian terror group. 10,000 of them have already been struck from land, water and air. The Israel Defense Forces on Thursday afternoon announced the death of a senior officer during fighting in Gaza, bringing the military's death toll to 18 since just Tuesday. 333 Israeli soldiers have been killed since the beginning of this war. The army said that ground forces and tanks clashed with Hamas terror cells in northern Gaza overnight, killing dozens of operatives in an intense and chaotic midnight battle that raged for over 3 hours following an ambush targeting soldiers from the Golani's 13th Battalion. So what is the ground situation at present? IDF says its troops have breached Hamas defenses and have approached the gates of Gaza City since October 28th. IDF increased the presence of its tanks and artillery at Gaza border. The number of Israeli military vehicles inside the perimeter seems to be increasing. They have expanded their ground operation once again. A second point at which Israeli forces appear to have entered Gaza is from the northeastern corner of the Strip near the town of Beit Hanun. Now, Israeli forces are 800 meters away from reaching the beach in Gaza, at which point the encirclement of North Gaza will be complete and the task of rescuing hostages will begin in right earnest. Naturally, the Hamas is now encircled and may just be trying for a strategic retreat. There is a fresh buzz about this possibility after Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh suggested a ceasefire formula. But the question is, even though there is great international pressure, especially from aid agencies, about calling for a ceasefire and reduce the civilian casualties, is Israel willing to bite?
وها نحن نحذرهم مرة أخرى أن نتنياهو لا مانع لديه من حرق الأخضر واليابس في الإقليم وخارجه لينقذ نفسه والمتطرفين من حوله، لا سيما أننا أبلغنا الوسطاء بضرورة وضع حد لهذه المجزرة والإبادة الجماعية فورا. وقدمت الحركة تصورا شاملا يبدأ بوقف العدوان وفتح المعابر ومرورا بصفقة لتبادل الأسرى وانتهاء بفتح المسار السياسي لقيام دولة فلسطينية مستقلة وعاصمتها القدس وحق تقرير المصير. ولكن نتنياهو يماطل ويخدع جمهوره بوعود زائفة لن نسمح له بتحقيقها.
Just as the United States would not agree to a ceasefire after the bombing of Pearl Harbor or after the terrorist attack of 9/11, Israel will not agree to a cessation of hostilities with Hamas after the horrific attacks of October 7th. Calls for a ceasefire are calls for Israel to surrender to Hamas, to surrender to terrorism, to surrender to barbarism. That will not happen. Well, I'm telling you right now that the future of our civilization is at stake. We have to win this war. We'll do it by minimizing civilian casualties, and may we succeed. The only thing that I intend to have resign is Hamas. We're going to resign them to the dustbin of history. That's my goal, that's my responsibility, and that's what I'm leading the country to do. This is my responsibility now. And it's something that I think unites the entire country.
Joining us on India Upfront, we have Jeremy Issacharoff. He's the former Vice Director General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and former Israeli Ambassador to Germany. Also with us is Droy Eydar. He's the former Israel Ambassador to Italy and San Marino. Dr. Dalal Irikat. She's the Assistant Professor at the Arab American University in Palestine. And Naveen Sanduka, who's the Regional Chief of Staff at the Alliance for Middle East Peace. Thank you very much all for joining us. I want to start by asking you, Mr. Issacharoff. Today, Ismail Haniyeh has said that Hamas is ready to put an end to the massacre. All they want are 4 things: that there should be a prisoner swap, that the borders should be opened, that there should be a ceasefire, and a comprehensive dialogue should start. Is it time to give peace a chance?
In my worldview, it's always time to give peace a chance, but not when you've been savagely attacked by Hamas, that are holding about 240 Israelis and killed around 1,400 Israelis, and many wounded. And these also include people with dual nationalities. So I think, first of all, it's time for Israel to restore its deterrence. Hamas has to understand that this can never be acceptable. And, you know, your question implies that Hamas has a political agenda. Hamas has said very clearly, and I heard a very senior Hamas official said yesterday, our agenda is to annihilate Israel. So I don't see what we have to discuss. They attacked us. We have decided to target their military capabilities, to neutralize Hamas as a governing power in Gaza. And this is not a time to be weak in our resolve.
But if they are willing to give quarter at this point and say, yes, we are willing to have a dialogue, yes, we are willing to talk about the two-state solution, can Israel at least come to the table, but the precondition is ceasefire?
Look, I think there are Palestinians that still aspire to reach a two-state solution. And I personally am in favor of that. But the partner to this is not people from Hamas, not the people that savagely and brutally killed Israelis, men, women, and children, and kidnapped women and murdered pregnant women and kidnapped people of 80 years old, and children. We have about over 30 children that have been kidnapped, youngsters. So I have no problem talking to moderate Palestinians who honestly want a two-state solution. Hamas wants a one-state solution, and that does not include Israel. I don't see what we have to talk to them about.
They are willing to return your prisoners. They are willing to return all the hostages that they still have, but after a ceasefire.
Well, that remains to be seen, and the Israeli forces are now in Gaza, and I'm sure that the Hamas is feeling a great deal of pressure, and I would suggest to them, if they had any sense, to immediately release all of the hostages, and then we'll see, what can be done. But first of all, they have to release all of the hostages, remove the source of aggression, this blatant, savage aggression against us, and then we'll assess the situation.
Talal Irikat, can this Hamas be trusted? Now they are offering an olive branch, but then you have another official of the same organization saying Al-Aqsa flood is step one. There's going to be a second and a third and a fourth. How can anyone be spoken to when you've already given such a statement of intent?
The PLO, which is the representative of the Palestinian people, had been negotiating with the Israelis for 30 years. It has become evident that the Israelis don't want to make peace with the Palestinians. And I'm going to quote Netanyahu himself. Netanyahu said it bluntly, who is the prime minister for Israel for 6 terms in a row. Let's face reality. He said, I don't want peace. No for the Palestinian state. And he said, I don't have a Palestinian partner. And he also said yes for settlements. Settlements which are internationally referred to as illegal and as a major obstacle towards peace. The Israelis, if they were really serious about making peace, in face of all the suffering that the civilians are facing, they are the ones who should be calling for immediate ceasefire. And if they are really serious about negotiations or any peace with the Arab world or any prosperity for this region, why didn't they respond to the Arab Peace Initiative, which came out in 2002? Let's remind them that the Palestinians, the PLO, since Arafat and then Abbas, he had been offering his peace offers until yesterday. He is a man of peace, a man of diplomacy, of negotiations, of dialogue. What did he get from the Israelis? He got more confiscations of land, more settlements on the ground. We are totally besieged in ghettos in the West Bank, and look what happened to the Gaza Strip that was totally besieged for 16 years. Israel tried to mislead the audiences by saying that they withdrew from Gaza in 2005. In reality, they dismantled their settlements in Gaza in 2005, but they never transferred the control to Hamas. This impression and this, they gave the impression to the international audience that Hamas is in control of Gaza, and this is something that we need to clarify. Israel, the Israeli occupation controls every detail and every aspect of Palestinian lives. They control whatever goes into or out of Gaza. So for example, if you want to go and visit Gaza, which is almost impossible, but you have to ask for the permit from the Israeli side, not from Hamas side. So this propaganda and the continued misleading of the audiences of saying that they have been trying, they don't want peace, they don't see any Palestinian interlocutor for peace. The PLO had been negotiating for 3 decades. And what we got on the ground is more deterioration. If they are serious about peace, let them respond to the Arab Peace Initiative and normalize relations, not only with the Arab states, but with all the Arab and Muslim states at once.
I just want to pause you for a second and play out actually what is it that the Hamas leader said when he was asked, what Ghazi Hamad said when he was asked about Al-Aqsa flood. Let's listen to that and I'll come back to you.
إسرائيل دولة لا مقام لها على أرضنا. إحنا الدولة لابد أن نزيلها لأنه بالفعل هي تعتبر كارثة أمنية وعسكرية وسياسية للأمة العربية والإسلامية، يجب أن تنتهي. لذلك احنا لا نخجل من نقول ذلك بكل قوة. إنه إسرائيل لازم نأدبها وحنأدبها مرة ثانية وثالثة، ومش هذا حتكون طوفان الأقصى أول مرة، لا حتكون ثانية وثالثة ورابعة، لأنه احنا لدينا إصرار ولدينا قرار ولدينا إمكانيات أن نقاتل وأن نحارب. لكن كما قلت لك بدنا ندفع ثمن. نعم احنا مسعدين، معلش بدي أقول لك بشكل واضح، احنا اسمنا شعب الشهداء ونفخر أن نقدم شهداء. احنا لا نريد أن نمس لا بالمدنيين ولا أن نلحق الأذى بهم، لكن أوقات لأنه في تعقيدات في الميدان صارت في منطقة موجودة، وكان هناك في احتفال وكان في سكان وفي منطقة واسعة ليست سهلة على امتداد تقريبا 40 كيلومتر. يجب أن ننتهي.
أن ينتهي وين؟
بس
بقطاع غزة؟
ينتهي إلى لا بتكلم عنه كل الأراضي الفلسطينية. كل
الأراضي الفلسطينية يعني طبعا. زوال إسرائيل؟
طبعا. وجود إسرائيل غير منطقي. وجود إسرائيل هو اللي بخلق كل هذه الآلام والعذابات والدموع والدماء. هي إسرائيل مش احنا ضحية الاحتلال، نقطة واخر السطر. لذلك ما حدا يلومنا، احنا شو اللي بنعمله في 7 أكتوبر، في 10 أكتوبر، في مليون أكتوبر، احنا اللي بنعمله مبرر. It is justified، مبررة.
Now here is a man who's saying Israel as a country has no place on earth. We must remove the country. It's a threat to Arab and Islamic nations and must be finished. How can one come on the table with a statement like this?
Let's be clear. If we are serious about peace, if we are truly peace and human advocates, then let us confess that there are far-right people on both sides. Why didn't I say here or listen to anybody criticizing Smotrich or Ben Gvir or Netanyahu's government, which is totally extreme and which is considered illegal in the Israeli streets and courts themselves. Listen, there are extremists on the other side. The fact that we are dealing with this conflict by violence will only breed more violence and hate. Let's be realistic in 2023. If you want peace, you do it through ending this Israeli military occupation, through defining the border of the state of Israel that has been recognized for so long.
Ma'am, the fact is Hamas is in power, is the one who is to be spoken to on the other side. If you're talking about peace, who do you talk to?
Thank you.
To the Hamas?
No, listen. Hamas is a political faction and they have a military wing. And learning, I'm a professor, okay? So I want to come to the Northern Ireland example now. In Northern Ireland, when the UK agreed to sign peace with the Irish, they had to include Sinn Féin and the IRA, which was a military wing. So the fact that Hamas are leading the resistance on behalf of all the Palestinians in our struggle for freedom makes it difficult to exclude Hamas. Hamas is a political party as well.
Would you talk to a person who said, my aim in life is to kill you?
No, of course not. I disagree with that. But we cannot ignore the fact that Hamas exists. And they cannot eradicate Hamas. Hamas is a thought. You know, Hamas is an ideology. They cannot eradicate Hamas by targeting 2.2 million civilians in Gaza. They are committing war crimes and labeling it to terrorism. This should not be okay with any conscious person. I am speaking to you from a logical and academic and rational perspective. If we are serious about peace, it doesn't take a genius. The UN, the international position, the two-state solution, draw the borders of the state of Israel and the Israeli military occupation, give the Palestinians their freedom and dignity and statehood, and then the two people will live in peace and dignity and prosperity in this region.
Droy Eydar, everyone has extremists, everyone has radicals on both sides. Can you meet the Hamas midway? Because ultimately somebody will have to begin talks.
So was that question for me?
What are we talking?
It was Mr. Eydar.
Do you hear me? Do you hear me?
Yes, go on.
Do you hear me? Okay, so let's speak about whom are we talking about. Actually, we had a ceasefire on the morning of October 7th. So the one that broke it was Hamas. It did not break it with a war. They raped our daughters. They beheaded our infants. They tied and burned alive our children.
I don't agree. Give facts. So give evidence. This is propaganda.
They have.
This is fake news.
I did not interfere you.
You're lying. You're misleading the audience. So, bring evidence for what you're saying. Please, here we are professional media. I urge you as a moderator.
Ma'am, we'll put out pictures which have been put out by the Israeli government. The Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has put out pictures. They have been shown at the UN General Assembly. So we will put them out on the...
That's not true. That's even the White House backed up on their statement.
So let
no
me
evidence was put. Please.
Let me speak. Tell this woman. Tell this woman not to interfere, please.
All right, Dr. Erikat, I'll come back to you. Let him finish his point, and then I will show the pictures and take your comment on it.
Let me speak. Let me speak.
Yes.
Okay. So Hamas has a manifest, political manifest, which is its operation plans. It's called the Covenant of Hamas. There are two principles in this covenant. One is full dedication to the destruction of the state of Israel. The second is full dedication to kill every Jew everywhere in the world. So actually, I know as a historian, only one document similar to this document of Hamas. It's called Mein Kampf of Hitler 100 years ago. So we are talking about a neo-Nazi organization that beheaded infants. So what are you talking about? Now, we in Israel, we fight not against a normal entity. We fight against Nazi Germany. So the same that the world in World War II did not have a ceasefire with such criminals, the same that the world did not have ceasefire with Al-Qaeda and with ISIS, neither we can have a ceasefire with such a monstrous entity that does not care even about their population. While they dug 500 kilometers of tunnels for their terrorists, they didn't even build even one shelter for their population. So Israel gave a humanitarian aid to this population. We took also care about a humanitarian corridor safe zone, but we are not stupid. We cannot come back again to that situation that we had on October 7th. Because when you deal with Nazis, what you have to do is to eliminate them in order, one, to save our civilian population, Israeli, and also to save the civilian population of Gaza, which now are used only as a human shield. So these people do not care, Hamas does not care even about their welfare. So this is the situation. We wanted to live in peace with them. We left all the place. We gave them even our greenhouse, but instead of building a Singapore there on the shore of the Mediterranean, they preferred to build a monstrous entity that beheaded infants.
That was the past. So, in the present, isn't there any way that Israel can come to the talks table? That is the question of what faces the world now. If they can be forced, if the Hamas can be forced to talk, can Israel at least come to the table?
We will come to the table after eliminating those terrorists. We cannot speak with such Nazis. You have to understand it. This is ISIS. They beheading people. They burn alive children. How can you trust them in one word? They don't care about their people. They killed their people.
Because Israel is also suffering reverses. As we speak, there have been 18 Israeli soldiers killed during the ground offensive. You've lost 333 soldiers since the beginning of this war. In just one month alone, 333 IDF soldiers have been killed. Are you willing to suffer this human cost?
We grade it. Yes, but this is our second independence war. We now are fighting about our survival, our existence. And the Jewish people after the Holocaust will not let happen again against any Nazi in the world. Even if he speaks Arabic, we don't care. We care about our life, our existence, and also we want to save these poor people in Gaza that are under the arm of this evil that uses them as a human shield. You have to understand, this is not the war of Israel, it's the war of the all free world. This right now, you have dormant cells in India of this such evil that are waiting to see what will be the destiny of Hamas and what will be with the support of the world. And when they see, if we defeat this evil, they will stay calm. But if the world and India will not help us to eliminate these terrorists, they will wake up in your streets. So this is a danger for the whole free world, even in India.
Dr. Eydar, this is a war of independence and you cannot give any quarter. You can't. Never again, says Israel.
It's not about quota. It's about our life.
If he really sees civilians, did you give me the platform or no? Were you talking to me?
Yes, go on. Dr. Eydar.
Okay.
You don't talk to terrorists. That's the simple message, because it's a war of independence.
Well, what Israel is perpetrating is state-organized terror, and they are perpetrating war crimes by international law definitions of what amounts to war crimes when you do collective punishment, when you do forced displacement orders, and today marks 106 years on the Balfour Declaration.
Hamas?
She gave me the platform, please. Don't waste the time.
Why don't you just condemn Hamas instead of shouting slogans?
Don't interrupt me. In face of all the sufferings, you know how many Palestinians, you know how many civilians have perished in the past 27 days? Every media is mentioning the 400 Israelis. Those are all civilians. We should be calling for humanity. More than 9,000 Palestinians were murdered, were slaughtered by the Israeli bombs and missiles. As we're talking now, the Israeli missiles, excuse me, if you are
responsible to these atrocities, even against yourself.
Excuse me, don't interrupt me. Don't interrupt me. I let you speak to the end.
You beheaded infants.
Okay.
Stop. I don't agree. I don't accept this propaganda.
Okay, listen. Mr. Zakharov, I'll come back to you. Let her finish, please. Let her finish, please. I'll come back to you. Yes.
Incredible.
Jewish values, Judaism. The Jewish values will not accept what your government is doing. This is very violent.
What about your Islamic values?
No, what you are saying is very criminal and very violent and very dangerous for humanity in 2023. If you have learned your lessons from the Holocaust, please, moderator, ask him to stop.
Okay,
please ask him to
just
stop.
One at a time, please.
Incredible.
But please address the issue. I have a very simple question for you.
Let me finish.
They raped our daughters.
Let me finish, please. Stop. This is propaganda. Fake news.
Incredible.
Fake news. I was in Gaza on the 20th of September with my hair. I went to the beach. I went on a boat. Nobody said no to me. Listen, don't mislead the audiences. I just visited Gaza.
Okay, one at a time. I'm requesting you, please. One at a time. I'll come back to you, gentlemen. Just let her have a say.
You are lying.
I want to say again that the Jewish religion is innocent of what the Israeli government is doing, the war crimes. We have more than, let him stop. Mute him, please.
Yes, finish your point. Yes.
We have had more than 4,000 children murdered and slaughtered. The bombs came onto their heads as they were sleeping in their rooms, in their homes in Gaza. 3,000 women, 2,000 students of the schools. Israel has been perpetrating those war crimes on the Palestinians for the past 75 years under a prolonged Israeli military occupation, a framework of apartheid, of confiscations, of extrajudicial killings, of settlement and settler terror. Every Palestinian is target. Or we are calling, and I urge your guests to call for humanity. Any sane person today should be calling for peace, for humanity, for ceasefire, and for the release of the hostages.
I again come back to a point
against all civilians.
Ma'am, it's a very existential point. It's a very existential point, which is a lack of complete trust, as you would imagine, in the backdrop of 1,400 people being killed in their beds, including men, women, children. There are testimonies, even if you are saying that
9,000 Palestinian civilians also, we are suffering too.
No, which is condemnable.
No.
But surely you will not discount. For example, I will just a second. I will play out for you.
Please.
I will play out for you, Dr. Erikat, a confession video, of a Hamas terrorist who has been arrested. This man from the Nukba brigade is confessing. These are people who did not leave anything to the imagination. They filmed everything on their GoPro cameras. It's not Israel who has released this footage. It's Hamas itself. They are not denying. What you are calling propaganda has been shot and released by the Hamas itself.
The propaganda is that it is an Israel-Hamas war. Israel is targeting every Palestinian. They want to evacuate the Palestinian people and they want to annex the land.
So
today in the Balfour Declaration,
all the lies
how do you eliminate? Answer me logically. How do you eliminate Hamas? You are the most sophisticated military country in the world. You are the startup nation. You cannot locate the military bases of Hamas. You target the residential buildings, the hospitals, the churches, and the mosques.
Let me just play out this video.
If we cannot speak, if she speaks all the time, I'm going to leave this transmission.
We will actually play out
because she took control of all this show.
Yes.
We want also to speak about.
Yes, Mr. Eydar, I'll come back to you. But before that, because this has been called propaganda, there are pictures that we are showing which were displayed. And this, by the way, has been shown to the American administration. It has been shown to 500 foreign journalists at a screening that was done, and it was also shown to members of parliament in Israel. So this is not something that can be disputed. It was shown by the envoy of Israel inside the UNG and all, and this is one of the confession videos of a man who was captured by the Israeli army. Let's listen to him.
بعدين مرقنا في بيت جنبينا كان من الشباك مرقنا فيه ومرقنا فتشنا البيت سمعنا صوت ولاد صغار في قلب ايش الملجأ. دخلنا على الملجأ.
بايش دخلوا على الملجأ؟
أول شيء ما دخلناش على الملجأ، مرقنا وفي الشيشة قعدنا في الأوضة وكنا طمع وشربنا مية. قعدنا بعدين وقفنا نسمع صوت صغار.
شو الصوت سمعته؟
صوتنا تمتمت صغار ولا مش عارف شو دخلنا البيت احنا.
تقدر سامعني عشان افهم؟
عياط ولد صغير زي هيك.
كانوا ايش؟ سويت انت؟
ولد بعيط.
اوكي.
طخيت انا وطخ احمد ابو كمال، طخينا على الباب.
لحد ما؟
بعدين بطلنا نسمع صوت.
طخيتوا لحد ما بطلتوا تسمعوا صوت؟
ما سمعناش صوت ساعتها. بعدين جا الجيش علينا. اشتبكنا مع الجيش.
يعني بطلتوا تسمعوا الصوت معناته ايش؟ شو صار؟
ماتوا. بعدين اجى الجيش واشتبكنا معه. اشتبكنا تقريبا مع أقل 10 دقائق، بعدين سلمنا حالنا، دخلنا من الشبابيك رمينا قنبلة على الجيش على الباب. ما صار المهم رمينا قنبلة وتفقعت. بعد 10 دقائق سلمنا حالنا.
بدي اسألك سؤال. قاتل الأولاد هذا شيء معقول حسب الدين الإسلامي؟
لا.
شو بيقول النبي محمد بهذه الشغلة؟
الصغار ما لهمش دعوة ولا صغار.
أنا بسألك سؤال، أنتوا دخلتوا عشان تقتلوا بأمر من الأخوة من حماس. شو الفرق بينكم وبين داعش؟
في الأمور الفرعونيات ما حد يقول فرق، فيش فرق بالمرة. الأمور الفرعونيات. شفت فيديوهات أنا أمر من داعش فرعونية المحاقي.
أبوك أمك كونوا فخورين بالفعل زي هيك؟
أنا أهلي بعرفش من حماس. احنا بعرفوش عربية اللي قالت لي يشوفني اللي يطخني يقتلنا هو يشوف.
ليش؟
عشان عملت العملين هذا.
So there you heard it. Naveen Sanduka, a man who is confessing on camera, I fired at a safe room when I heard children crying till the crying stopped.
You have no evidence. You have no evidence. This can be fabricated. And it did not show images of the beheaded babies that you were talking about.
Okay, I will.
It did not show any evidence.
I don't know if you can see the screen. I don't know if you can see the screen.
Is this a serious discussion? Because she sees it with her own eyes.
In times of the civilians that are perishing, you should be calling for ceasefire now.
The Palestinians have done.
You should not waste your time on arguments.
I will request you, because others need to speak as well. Naveen Sanduka hasn't spoken as yet. This is evidence which has been presented to the international community, has been acknowledged by the international community.
No evidence for the fake news of the babies.
Ma'am, with the greatest of respect, irrespective of whether the babies were beheaded, they were shot, they were throttled, the fact is people are dead. People are dead. Yes. 1,400 Israelis are dead.
That's why I'm calling for a ceasefire. I don't want more dead people.
But would you talk to the people who have killed 1,400 of your people? Okay, let Naveen Sanduka speak. Is there a trust deficit? And is it enough to say, now we are willing to talk? Because in the minds of the Israelis, they will be saying, we are this close to finishing off the Hamas. Why should we give up that strategic advantage? The Hamas is scared, and so they're asking for a ceasefire.
Thank you very much, and I hope, as I didn't interrupt anybody, that nobody is going to interrupt me too, because I respected and listened to everybody. So thank you so much for having us here today as two Palestinian women talking. I myself wear the hat of being both a Palestinian and a peace activist at the same time. And let's go back together to the 7th of October when this atrocity happened. To begin with, it didn't just happen out of the blue. I would agree with Dalal that happened after 50 plus years of occupation, 15 years of being under siege, more than 4 wars, and the total dehumanization of one another. And at the same time, we allowed that there is this separation between the West Bank and Gaza. Gaza being ruled by Hamas, the people in Gaza didn't have any place to go. They were under siege. There was no electricity, no water, no jobs, and again, a total dehumanization of the other. I'm not justifying what happened. I saw the pictures as well, and I saw the videos, but it was expected in a way. We did not expect that they were coming to open the borders all of a sudden and come out with flowers. Some of the videos that I saw, honestly, from the Palestinians, they were shooting at soldiers, and they were saying, this is for my brother, and this is for my cousin, which shows us one thing, that basically hate breeds more hate. And being under occupation and being under siege totally dehumanizes the other. As peace organizations, we have been talking and we have been warning that the level of radicalization on both the Jewish side and the Israeli and the Palestinian side has been increasing dramatically. Almost 70% of the Palestinian young people and almost 70% of the Israeli young people delegitimize the right of the other to the land. And these are people that basically never witnessed any kind of peace process or negotiations. And I think the only way forward right now is to stop, or at least a ceasefire on Gaza, and to start real serious negotiations about the situation. I would agree with Dalal that peace cannot happen only if you talk to to people like myself. We need to include everybody in these negotiations, including the nationalist extremists from Israel, who right now attacked a village in the West Bank, who are also killing people in East Jerusalem. There is collective punishment happening. It's much more than just targeting Hamas at the moment. And we are calling for the protection of civilians everywhere, including East Jerusalem and including the West Bank and Gaza and, of course, in Israel.
Droy Eydar, hate begets more hate, and a picture today from Gaza of a 1-day-old baby. Anyone who sees this in Palestine, will they be ever be able to trust Israel again?
So, first of all, when you hear my colleague here that does not believe even to the testimony of these terrorists, and of the film, while the Nazis wanted to cover their atrocities, these terrorists were proud of it and they film it. So if she doesn't believe what they put in the social, how can we trust any accord, any agreement with them? First. Second, we are sorry, very sorry about the civilian population. But we know yesterday, we have evidence, Hamas sent children in a battle zone because Hamas knows that the Israeli soldiers are not willing to kill children. So they put them as human shields. We are speaking about a monstrous entity that beheaded infants. What are you talking about? So I heard occupation. There was no occupation in Gaza Street since summer 2005. We wanted to give them, we gave them water, we gave them electricity, we gave them our greenhouse, we gave them people in the kibbutzim that were beheaded, dedicate all their life to the welfare of Gaza. They put pipes for water for the Gaza, and Hamas took it from the ground and made missiles for it, and then in October 7th they came to this kibbutz and killed these
Ms.
good
Sanduka
men.
Wants to quickly correct you on one point.
That helped them.
She wants to correct you. Yes.
Please, under international humanitarian law.
I don't hear her. Can you? I don't hear her.
This point. Just this point, if you please. Under international humanitarian law. Okay, do you hear me now?
What did she say, please?
Yes, she's just responding to you for a second. Yes, go on.
Under international humanitarian law, when you put one entity under control, under control, and you basically put them under siege and you lock them up and their borders as well, and you take all their resources, that is still considered occupation. The other point that I just want to make quickly, that when Israel uninationally basically disengaged from Gaza, it did not coordinate with the Palestinian Liberation Organization, which basically gave strength to Hamas and made us to where we are today. I just wanted to clarify those two historical points because that's important.
Mr. Eydar.
Can you tell me what she said? I didn't hear her.
Yes, she was basically, she was saying that there was no coordination with the PLO at that time, and eventually it ended up strengthening the Hamas.
He can also go back to
yes. So we are fighting against a pure evil. We don't care what's the name of this organization. They want to exterminate the state of Israel, and they don't care about their population. So they don't recognize even the Palestinian Authority. In fact, they expelled them from Gaza, and they also killed their policemen. Okay. So they do not recognize the Palestinian Authority. So whom are we talking about?
Okay, you are talking about children being used as human shields. Dr. Dalal Erikat, I want you to listen to an audio conversation that was released by the Israeli Defense Force today. They claim this is proof that Hamas even now continues to prey on people of Gaza itself, of stealing fuel from hospitals at a time when hospitals are on the verge of a shutdown. I just want you to listen to this and then respond.
أبو الحسن
أبو حمزة السلام عليكم.
سلام يا حبيبي.
أنا واقف مع الدكتور عاطف فتح سبيكر، رحنا عشان نعدل الصور اللي أنت حكيتوا عنها. تقول لي فيش صور يا أبو حسن، أنا بحكي الصور بقول لك إنه أنتم تجيبوا 1000 لتر زيت.
هذا في الأندونيسي؟ في الأندونيسي؟
هي في الأندونيسي واقف مع الدكتور عاطف وبسمع فتح سبيكر.
طب وقال لك فيش طلاب؟
أي صوت كان مو صوت منه.
طب أنا قالوا لي عبي من الأندونيسي.
نعم.
أنا كلمنا أبو أحمد الزريعي امبارح وقال عبي من الأندونيسي.
مين أبو أحمد الزريعي؟
وكيل وزارة الاقتصاد.
طيب إنه امبارح في الليل كان عبي، كان وكيل قال لي وكيل الوزارة قال لي امبارح في الليل تعبي له إذا بده يتحرك في الليل، في النهار في لهم جايهم 1000 لتر.
وين؟
بيعبوا فين؟
وين؟
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 مش عارف.
يا سيدي مش عارف. ما اعتبرنا اخذنا في الليل ليش بدها تفرق؟
لا بتفرق الوكيل قال لي شيء الوكيل قال لي في الليل بدي بتعبي له اياه 1000 لتر، قلت له انا عندهم 600 لتر الفل تبعه، قال لي خلاص بدي اعبيهم 600 لتر تعبي لهم
سيدي. واحنا بدنا نعمل تواصل، عبال ما نعمل تواصل عارفين بدين نشتغل. احنا كلياتنا حكومه لمصلحه البلد نشتغل.
نشوف كيف حال
الله يرضى عليك هيك تعبي له، لانه والله مضغوط علينا من الناس شوي تخافونا الناس متاخرين علينا. الله يرضى عليك. كل الشكر لك يا دكتور.
Dr. Dalal Rikat, how do you respond to this?
Telling you that this hospital had stopped working yesterday because they ran out of fuel. Everything in Gaza is running out of fuel. 50,000 Palestinian women are pregnant and they cannot get the hygiene, visiting the doctors, the echoes, because the hospitals are not being able to provide any medical service because of the lack of medicine and the lack of fuel for hospitals. Listen, our question is now...
But who's taking away the fuel? The IDF says it's Hamas who's stealing the fuel, according to this phone conversation.
Let me argue. Yes, I want to argue with you logically. For the past 16 years, and I want to argue again, that the Israelis were controlling every aspect of Gaza, from the land, from the sea, and from the water and the air. Hamas won in the elections, but when Sharon withdrew, a Dov Weiss-Glass, his aide, said bluntly that we want to suffocate the Palestinians and we want to empower Hamas.
Dr. Rikat, I want to look at the road ahead, so I want to bring you back to the present.
I will answer you the fuel. I will answer you. Yes. I am going back. But I want to also show you your biased media, because you already showed 2 videos that support the Israeli narrative, but I didn't see you showing any image or video supporting my narrative. Anyway,
I actually did show the picture of the one-day-old baby.
Any evidence?
I didn't see it. I didn't see it. Anyway, you spoke about it, but I didn't see any images. Anyway, the fuel, for the past 16 years, it was the international humanitarian organizations, OCHA and all UN, UNRWA organizations, which were facilitating, taking care of, taking the fuel inside Gaza. Why isn't Israel today accepting for the international coordination and for the, we have seen the Secretary General of the UN on the border begging Netanyahu and begging the Israeli criminals to allow food, water, medicine and fuel. They told them, we have the complete measures. For the past 16 years, you have been trusting those international organizations who made sure for entry of fuel and all the different humanitarian supplies. My argument now, and I urge you everyone, humanitarian aid is urgent, but in the face of the atrocities, the slaughtering and the murders that amount to war crimes, as we speak, civilians are dying, mostly children. 1.2 million children live in Gaza. We, as humans, as mothers, as fathers, as educators, we should not remain silent. We should be all calling for ceasefire if we care
so
about
can I request you to respond to that very specific evidence put forward of Hamas taking 1,000 liters of fuel from a hospital that is struggling, of images that have been released showing that the Hamas headquarters is under the Al-Shifa hospital?
There is no image. No, this is AI generated. Excuse me. We are living in the 2023. We should not be naive enough to believe an AI generated videos and such naivety.
Okay, respond. Mr. Issacharoff, this is basically propaganda warfare by Israel. These conversations, these interrogations, even what was released by way of showing under the Al-Shifa hospital, it was AI generated at the end of the day. Where is the visual evidence?
First of all, the only propaganda I can see here is what this lady, Miss Arakat, is spurting out. And I thought we were going to have a serious discussion. She cannot bring herself to condemn Hamas's crimes against Israeli civilians and children. She denies everything. It didn't happen. It's a figment of our imagination. We have shown proof and evidence of what has happened. Do you want us to show pictures of a pregnant woman having her belly slid open, the Hamas killing the unborn baby and then shooting this woman in the head? And this woman, Miss Arakat, she can't accept this? What are we supposed to do? We cannot show these pictures because they're horrific. And we have to live with this terror. Now, we left Gaza in 2005. The PA took over Gaza. And one thing Miss Arakat is forgetting, that the Hamas took the Palestinian Authority representatives and threw them off the roof. And believe me, if today the Hamas is killing the Israelis, believe me, tomorrow they will kill moderate, secular Palestinians without any problem. So I think she should get a bit of into a reality and try for once, look at what the facts really are.
She has basically questioned. She has questioned.
Enemy more than mine.
She has questioned the veracity of the evidence because. Let's talk specifically about the Al-Shifa hospital. The IDF said that we have intelligence based on which we have generated this image. There is no actual picture of what exists under the Al-Shifa hospital. Doctors at the hospital have said, we haven't seen this underground center.
I have a suggestion.
Hamas is hiding behind its own civilians. It's killing its own. Do you know how many Hamas rockets fell in Gaza?
Let's assume the IDF is right. I will give you a suggestion. Give me a platform, please. Let me remind you that the ICC prosecutor 2 days ago stood at the border and he begged Netanyahu to give him entry to go and investigate. Why didn't you stop, please? Let the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court team go inside Gaza and investigate. It should not be through bombing and shelling and slaughtering and murdering human beings.
Israeli soil.
Let the ICC go into Gaza and investigate if there is any military base under the hospital. I'm speaking mind to mind. Please, don't mislead the audiences.
Even if you don't want to let the ICC go, I want you to listen to what the World Health Organization and the UN agencies have also been saying about hospitals and their condition. And please, if you can respond to that, Mr. Issacharoff and Mr. Eydar. Let's listen to them.
On average, 420 children in Gaza have been reportedly killed or injured every day. 420. Obviously, a ceasefire, if we had a ceasefire for 72 hours, that would mean 1,000 children don't have to, bear the brunt of mortars or shelling. That would mean 1,000 children in 72 hours would be safe again. And that to us, to UNICEF, is all a ceasefire means. It simply means we would keep innocent children safe.
The fuel is not just a luxury commodity for fancy cars to drive around. It's vital for the water supply. It's vital for the ambulances. It's vital for the hospitals to operate, and many other instances to make the life in Gaza a little bit lighter in that ongoing humanitarian catastrophe.
So you're questioning the Gaza Authority, but what about the World Health Organization and UNICEF? Mr. Eydar.
That Israel is using the hostages as human shields.
Okay, please let him respond, Mr. Eydar.
Putting their own civilians at risk.
I cannot speak with her.
Ma'am, let Mr. Eydar respond to the World Health Organization.
She's speaking all the time, and she's lying. Let me speak also.
Yes, go on.
Now, who is responsible for the death of these poor children? Hamas. That hide behind them, that send them in a battle zone. We called for evacuation of this zone in order to fight only these terrorists. We don't want to harm the population. First. Second, any fuel that we will supply to Gaza will be stolen by these terrorists for their purposes. So if they want fuel, we want our hostages out free. If they don't give us, why should we help them when they killing their children? And the third, how can we trust even one of them if Dr. Dalal is lying in front of all of us and does not accept even facts on the ground that Hamas filmed? How can we trust anyone there? So now, in the World War II, did the world have ceasefire with Nazi Germany? We are speaking about a monstrous entity that beheaded children, raped our daughters. So until we not eliminate these terrorists, there will be no peace in the region, even for the population of Gaza.
Before I bring you in, Ms. Sanduka, I want to ask Mr. Issacharoff, is there a possibility of a 24-hour window? Let the women and children leave. Let the women and children leave. Just the children, perhaps. Or those who need hospital medical emergency.
We have urged all the Palestinians to evacuate from north of the Gaza Strip and even from Gaza City to go to the south. There are humanitarian zones. There's water being supplied there. There's fuel being supplied there. Of course, Miss Arakat, she knows everything. So whatever I say, she's going to deny, as if she has any evidence for anything. But let her continue to shout. That's fine. But all I'm saying is we're not targeting civilians. We're targeting the Hamas infrastructure, which they embedded in hospitals, in the civilian infrastructure, in schools and in mosques. They fire from behind their civilians. And more than that, they also stop the civilians, the Palestinians, from going to these safe zones in the south. These are not humans. I'm sorry. And I have good Palestinian friends. And we, believe me, I still have confidence in them because they know very well. And they even said to me that what Hamas is doing to the Israelis, they will also do to us as moderate Palestinians. That's why I can't believe Miss Arakat, why she's in such a frenzy defending and justifying the Hamas atrocities. I just don't understand it.
I'll give you the final word, Naveen Sanduka, as a goodwill gesture, and we've been saying this since day one. Perhaps there would be a little bit of trust if at least the hostages were to be released by Hamas. Why hold on to human beings as bargaining chips?
Yeah, so I think the first trust building, you're exactly right. What we need right now to do is more trust building measures. The first trust building measure is basically to allow ICC to basically do good investigations in both around Gaza and in Gaza as well, to see all these images that we are seeing and all these stories, whether it's true or not. First of all, it's a third party that can give us an independent report that can be the first step to bridge that trust between the Palestinians and the Israeli people. The second thing is just on this point of the humanitarian aid. Humanitarian aid was only allowed last week, and only 20 trucks were allowed in. We are hearing, again, we're not sure if it's true or not, everything is propaganda on both sides, that children are actually being, they don't have clean water to drink, they don't have food to eat, and people are actually going into starvation mode as well. Sir, I heard you tell the end, please hear me until the end. All I'm asking for is, if we're talking about trust-building measures, let's do it the proper way. We are calling for the protection of civilians. We are calling for international units to enter Gaza to make sure that the civilians in Gaza are being protected, and also make sure that we have a proper humanitarian corridor, and not asking the Palestinians to leave Gaza into Sinai, which is basically a second Nakba for the Palestinians. Can
there be a third-party intervention, Mr. Eydar? Final word.
So what I'm saying is that Hamas is responsible to what happened now. And you have to understand, this is not the fight of Israel alone. It's your fight against pure evil, against a tyranny that want to enslave all the free world. And even in India, there are dormant cells of these atrocities that are waiting. So whom are we talking about? We are not speaking about the Palestinian Authority. We're speaking about people that raped our daughter, beheaded our infants, and burned alive our children, and they don't believe it. They took pictures of their atrocities when they were proud, and the other do not believe in it. So now Israel will not give a ceasefire. Ceasefire will be only after eliminating these terrorists, because we want to save our civilians and also to save the Palestinian civilians from this murderer that this woman defended it. So shame on it. and we will continue to save the free world from this tyrant.
Well, I think the points of view from both sides are very, very apparent. Rage and anger and hurt and deep, deep anguish on both sides, the demands of a ceasefire notwithstanding. Thank you very much, both ladies, Droy Eydar and Mr. Issacharoff, for joining us here on India Upfront.